relating to or denoting an imagined state or society where there is great suffering or injustice. This is the Oxford definition of a dystopian. And if it sounds very similar to the world we live in today, that's because I truly believe it is. From The Matrix to Blade Runner to The Hunger Games, dystopian films and media are becoming increasingly similar to the world that we live in. Our society has countless seemingly unsolvable issues all around the globe, and it's caused a recent mass suffrage among the human race. So how do we classify a dystopia? Dystopias are the opposite of a utopia, where everything negative in society controls all aspects of life. You see where I'm going with this? I believe the most similar ways that our society today lines up with much of the dystopian media that's seen in films is our increasingly out of control technology, an oppressive power-hungry elite, in seismic world events, Russia, that could lead to a potential war and fallout in the near future. With those three heavy points, the only thing you need for a dystopia to be a real thing is an actual intact society, which somehow we still have. Luckily, we have tons of Hollywood material to compare to our own society, and it's a very well-received genre because people have always compared those movies and themes to things that are very similar and happening in our own society today. Movies like 1984 and The Matrix are even more popular today than they were 25 years ago, and I believe that's due to a lot of people having that wait a minute moment, you know, where we have a realization that our society is not very far off of the society that is perceived in these different films. They almost predict how we would be today. I think our biggest, most dystopian example that we've had in recent history was the COVID outbreak in quarantine. Streets were a ghost town and every little thing was monitored by the Big Brother, just like the movie 1984. People having mandated vaccines and constant tests just to go to college or work, forced to give up their bodies and livelihood to wear a mask 24/7 for a virus that is far more similar to a common cold than the bubonic plague, in my humble yet clearly correct opinion. Looking back on it, it was so dystopian at the time, and it enslaved so many people to adapt to the agenda that was being pushed. The constant mainstream news cycle that was regurgitating the same information to the slave mind to make sure that it stayed indoctrinated, and it's carried over and is now, you know, a regular amenity of the world. So it's hard to even argue if we are living in a dystopia when things like this have been going on for the past 5 or 10 years. Let's take a step back for 1 second before we get too carried away. Let's look at some of the people that tried to create a utopia, an autonomous society. According to Plato, an ideal society is structured as a harmonious whole, where individuals are assigned roles based on their natural abilities, with the most capable philosopher kings ruling as the guardians in the society and leading them based on reason of virtue, effectively creating a meritocratic society and system where the best are always chosen to lead. Which, if you look at the world today, look at the people running all of these countries. What the fuck are we doing? This concept is most prominently outlined in his work, The Republic. I think it's great. All of you should, you know, look into that. You can honestly learn a lot about why he was snuffed and it wasn't allowed to pursue his ideas. He wasn't too focused on, you know, the individualism that plagues the Western world today. Everything was team-based and done as a whole, but it never picked up much, unfortunately. If you look at the way our society is going today, everyone has these, and this is all you need. This is the only friend you need. It's the only thing you need in your life. Everyone's in their own head, you know? Everyone believes they're the next big thing. And Plato would probably be very disappointed with this, I'm not gonna lie. Confucius believed that to restore order, societies had to encourage certain virtues, such as loyalty, trustworthiness. The biggest thing, which is still very prominent in Asian culture, which I love, is respecting your elders. He believed that all these virtues were attainable through education. By learning history, literature, and philosophy, people could gain the right insight in order to thrive as a utopia. This led China's history for literally 2,000 years, his philosophies. And you can clearly see the difference between how our indoctrinated, uneducated society of today is compared to his society over 2,000 years ago. Instead of loyalty, trustworthiness, and respecting our elders, we have a lot of snaking and lying and disrespect going on in the world. It was all about learning philosophy, something that isn't taught and is kind of lost today. In more recent history, the one that you guys might have actually learned in your history classes, the famous German philosopher George Hegel, he stressed the need to recognize that the realities of the modern state necessitate a strong public authority, along with a populace that is free and unregimented. He believed that the principle of government in the modern world was a constitutional monarchy, which a lot of his ideas were used by somebody like Karl Marx, which led to communism and ended up being a dystopian for some of those European countries that, you know, tried to pursue what he had planned. The people that rise to the power and have these ideas can use them for evil to enslave the masses, and unfortunately that's what happened basically. One thing that's for certain when it comes to a dystopia is that unfortunately the tech and the science will always evolve, and it'll eventually be abused. Or technology changes society itself and triggers, you know, conditions that might take years to create a dystopian. What really sucks about this idea though is that we kind of need the technology and science to advance as a society. But how far is far enough, you know? For example, I mean, modern medicine has saved over 150 million people in the past 50 years. That is a mind-blowing number. Somebody watching this video would likely be dead if modern medicine wasn't a thing, which is crazy. Things like modern agriculture are saving millions of people of having to work back-breaking jobs and sweating in a field for minimum wage. I feel like the turning point has been in the last couple of decades, where technology and science has unfortunately caused more harm than help, and it's leading us down a dark dystopian path in my opinion. Some of the biggest uses for the biggest, newest technology, which is AI, are data harvesting and 24/7 surveillance of everybody, stripping us of what it feels like to be free and live in a utopia. Curiously though, I believe the question, are we living in a dystopia, is best answered by people's personal lives and experiences. If the world's problems, specifically, are preventing somebody from advancing in life and having a good and meaningful life, then that person lives in a dystopia. That's just what it is, you know? But we are not fully in a dystopia because you can still escape and thrive without being shackled down by everything the world has to trap us with. So I guess a good question to ask is like, what can we do? Like the regular people, like me and you. I'm a fucking YouTuber with 2,000 subscribers. What the fuck can we do to prevent a dystopia? I believe that by looking at fictional and science fictional dystopian worlds and studying them, we can learn a lot about our society and help change our personal lives for the better of the world. And we can help ourselves not feel so blinded by the seemingly inevitable future of our society. We can look to movies like The Matrix as a warning about the advancement of AI, something that is extremely relevant in 2024. The book and movie 1984 for its take on life where humans are enslaved and constantly controlled and surveillance. A world that was predicted by George Orwell in 1949, almost 80 years ago. He predicted how our world would be today, and it is eerily similar. It's actually kind of scary. A sleeper of a movie, in my opinion, it's not crazy popular. Children of Men. It combats the declining population issue in its dystopian world, something that 20 or 30 years ago when this film was coming out didn't really seem like the biggest issue, but is increasingly becoming a problem in our society today. There's not really many countries that are predicted to increase in population over the next 50 years. And a country like Japan is looking to have a 20% population decrease in that time period, with an aging population and an oppressed young men and women population that are not interested in having children because of the world that's going on around them. Young men are so overworked that they're coming home and not wanting to cram that I'm sorry. You get what I mean though. So to me, it's very interesting how our society is increasingly becoming more and more similar to these dystopian worlds that are portrayed in films. Most of the time, they are just magnified and exaggerated versions of things that are 100% going down today in the world. So to answer that question I asked at the very, very beginning of this video, are we living in a dystopia? I believe that we're teetering on the line of living in a dystopian world, but ultimately, the world that we live in is too complex and has too many systems. It's way too varied for any one thing to dominate. Though we'll forever have many dystopian qualities for the foreseeable future, for the time being, at least in 2024, there are real humane ways to drown all of it out. But I think that time frame is dwindling. I'm very certain of that. And I believe that because of that, the skill of being able to tune out all the bullshit is much more important. So yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I actually wrote shit down for this video, surprisingly. I hope it resulted in a better, more structured video. I don't know. I'm kind of trying it out. I wrote 3 pages of shit. This recording's 20 minutes, but I'm sure the video will be a lot shorter than that. I love sci-fi and dystopians, and I just really, really wanted to make a video on this. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Later.